only agriculture is causing the nitrates.
Question number 12, Honi Harawira.
Tēnā koe, Mr. Speaker.
Tēnā koe.
To the Minister of Finance, what is this budget plan, if any, to immediately address growing poverty in New Zealand, which has got so bad that charitable organisations have today said they are expecting an influx of more than 40,000 struggling families for Christmas dinner because they can't afford to put food on the table?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, the Government has a very strong track record in protecting the most vulnerable New Zealanders. It's worth noting that inequality gap, as measured by the annual MSD Household Incomes Report, has narrowed in recent years after peaking in around 2004. This year's budget included more than $900 million to help vulnerable families through a significant investment in a range of programs. $189 million to assist people from welfare into work, $377 million to build 3,000 new State House bedrooms and 500 new two-bedroom homes, $100 million over 3 years for the Warm Up New Zealand program. The Kickstart Breakfast was expanded to 5 mornings a week in decile 1 to 4 schools, $21 million over 4 years for rheumatic fever prevention, $15.7 million for the Children's Action Plan, $172 million in new investment in early childhood education, $7 million to increase the coverage of health and development before school checks. Nobody is saying it is easy for those who are in a vulnerable position, but the government is doing its bit by investing in services to support those who need them.
That's right. Before I call the member for a supplementary, can I ask the interchange between my right-hand side and my left-hand side to cease? Honourable supplementary question, Honi Harawira.
Will the government use any surplus funds to reduce the crippling unemployment figure of 150,000, plus the 4,000 people who lost their jobs last month, by initiating a comprehensive government job creation program to put Kiwis back to work in their communities until such time as the private sector has picked up the slack? Or is it their intention to use such surpluses to simply continue to subsidise the likes of Rio Tinto, banks, finance companies, Sky City Casino, Warner Brothers and wealthy property developers?
Honourable Stephen Joyce.
Well, Mr. Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, actually the unemployment rate, the member may not have noticed, has dropped again yesterday and employment is growing. Then the other member raises a point about Northland, which I think is very important, and both of those members could be of assistance to the government as we seek to increase job opportunities in Northland. For example, they could support the exploration of minerals in Northland, which I know Mr Harawira does not support. They could support and encourage the resolution of treaty settlements to make assets available for iwi in Northland, which have been very successful in creating economic activity and job growth elsewhere. They could also perhaps assist with the primary sector productivity work being undertaken by my colleague Honourable Nathan Guy, and they could also support the Puhoi to Wellsford Road, which would provide a huge amount of access to that Northland area from the biggest city in New Zealand to its south. All of those things would support employment and job creation opportunities in Northland.
Point of order, the Honourable Shane Jones.
So I realise we're at the end of question time, going on 3:30, but can you please ponder as to why it's been necessary to castigate this side of the House in terms of the length of answers, the length of questions, and yet you've let him get away and take responsibility for my views on mining, which are already well known.
Oh, I can certainly ponder the point the member's making. Supplementary question, Honi Harawira.
Will government use surplus funds to support a living wage for the nearly 50% of Kiwis earning less than $25,000 a year, or to feed the 270,000 children still registered as living below the poverty line? Or is it the government's intention to simply throw another $40 million after the $80 million already squandered on a yacht race for the greedy and the gluttonous?
Honourable Stephen Joyce, insofar as his ministerial responsibility.
Well, Mr Speaker, on behalf of the Minister of Finance, with the greatest respect to the member, if he actually did more effort in assisting with job creation in Northland, then we would actually have a lot better outcomes than if sitting here bagging people who are interested in job creation for New Zealanders, including all the companies that he's mentioned so far. In relation to the living wage, I would draw his attention to the Treasury report, which points out that the living wage would have very little impact on inequality or poverty measures, and most people affected are actually those who are single adults or couples with no children, and not the families earning below a so-called living wage of $18.40 an hour.
I call on Government Order of the Day number 1.
New Zealand International Convention Centre Bill, committee stage continued.
I declare the